Picture this, a 1971 Pontiac Lemons barreling through Brooklyn streets at 90 miles per hour, dodging real cars and pedestrians who had no idea they were part of the chaos. That's the raw heart of 1970s car chases, an era when filmmakers didn't hide behind computers. They threw real machines and real lives into the fire for moments that still make your chest tighten. Back then, Hollywood was shifting, audiences demanding something genuine after years of polished fakeness, and car chases became the ultimate rebellion on screen. We're talking about pursuits that weren't just thrilling, they captured freedom, danger, and a touch of madness, all without a single digital trick. Today, as we dive into the first half of the 15 greatest 70s car chases, you'll feel that nostalgia wrap around you like exhaust smoke. But hang on, because beneath the glory, tensions were building that could have ended it all. And by the time we reach the edge of this part, you'll see how one decision nearly shattered the magic forever. Point 1. Fighting the system. It started with the sheer audacity of it all, the problems stacking up like wrecked fenders on a junkyard lot. First, directors were fighting against a system that prized safety and budgets over bold risks. William Friedkin, helming the French Connection in 1971, shot his legendary chase guerrilla style, no official permits, just bribing a transit official for access to the elevated train tracks, as he later confessed in interviews. Gene Hackman's Popeye Doyle commandeers that Pontiac, chasing a hitman with stunt driver Bill Hickman at the wheel, and an unscripted crash with a civilian car made the cut because it was too real to fake. But that grit came at a price, lives on the line, with Friedkin himself in the back seat. Camera rolling, heart pounding. Point 2. Technical limitations and cultural clash. Then there was the tech limitation, or lack thereof, forcing everything to be practical. In Vanishing Point that same year, Richard Sarafian sent Barry Newman's Kowalski tearing across the American West in a 1970 Dodge Challenger, 5 identical cars provided by Chrysler, all pushed to destruction by drivers like Kerry Lofton. No green screens, just sun-scorched highways and a cult symbol of defiance. But the wear on those machines mirrored the strain on the crews, who filmed without closed roads, risking everything for authenticity. And don't forget the cultural clash. The 70s were turbulent, with films like Bullitt from 1968 setting the tone, Steve McQueen's Mustang GT chasing a Dodge Charger through San Francisco's hills at over 110 miles per hour. Peter Yates got unprecedented city access, but by the early 70s, that freedom was eroding as authorities tightened up, frustrated by the chaos spilling into real life. Point 3. The rising toll. Those issues only escalated as the decade revved on, turning small frustrations into full-blown crises. Stuntmen became the unsung heroes, but their bodies paid the toll. Take H.B. Halicki in Gone in 60 Seconds from 1974, directing, starring, and driving Eleanor, that 1973 Ford Mustang, through a 40-minute chase that wrecked 93 cars. He slammed into a light pole at 100 miles per hour, fracturing a vertebra, yet dragged himself back to finish, as reports from the set detailed. It was passion bordering on recklessness, fueled by a desire to outdo the last big hit. Meanwhile, team dynamics in productions grew tense. Directors like John Hoff in Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry pushed crews through rural California with a 1969 Dodge Charger, evading helicopters and patrol cars. Stunt coordinator Paul Baxley relying on minimal safety for those narrow roads and walnut groves. The pressure mounted when cities started pushing back. San Francisco's leniency for Bullitt gave way to stricter rules, forcing filmmakers to sneak shots, heightening the danger. And emotionally, these chases tapped into something deeper, like the rebellion in Vanishing Point's existential roar. But that same spirit bred inconsistencies, with unscripted moments like McQueen's reverse burnout and Bullitt staying in because they felt alive, yet hinting at how close things were to spinning out of control. Point 4. Embracing the madness. For a while, it looked like they'd found the perfect fix, embracing the madness head-on. Filmmakers leaned into practical effects harder, turning risks into triumphs. Philip D'Antoni in The 7 UPS from 1973 followed up his Bullitt success by barreling Roy Scheider's Pontiac Ventura through Manhattan and onto parkways. Bill Hickman, again choreographing a chase with real traffic and a shocking roof-launching crash. It seemed resolved, More muscle cars, more guts, and audiences loved it as box office numbers soared. Hal Needham's Smokey and the Bandit in 1977 turned Burt Reynolds' Trans Am into an icon, jumping bridges with NASCAR-modified engines, destroying 3 cars in the process. The formula worked, blending comedy and chaos, and even gritty entries like White Lightning kept the momentum, with Reynolds launching a Ford off a riverbank onto a barge, his friend Needham nearly drowning in a botched stunt that Reynolds himself rescued him from. But this wasn't sustainable. Whispers from sets revealed the overlooked cracks, exhausted crews, rising insurance costs, and moments like the bribe in the French Connection exposing ethical gray areas. The resolution was false, a high-speed illusion masking the burnout ahead. 5. Cliffhanger. The tipping point, and then, just as the era hit its peak, everything teetered on the brink. A single chase in the late 70s pushed too far, unraveling the trust and forcing a reckoning that could end the golden age. Was it the relentless pursuit in Mad Max, with its shoestring budget and public road dangers, or something even more explosive? The full story waits, where the revelations hit like a head-on collision. 6. The fragility exposed. Remember that cliffhanger, where the 70s car chase era was speeding toward a wall it couldn't avoid? Well, buckle up, because now we're peeling back the layers on what really happened, the revelations that reshaped everything. We thought we knew about those wild pursuits. It turns out the turning point wasn't just one chase. It was a chain reaction starting with Mad Max in 1979, where George Miller scraped together a shoestring budget to unleash dystopian chaos on Melbourne's open roads. No permits, cars skidding at 100 miles per hour past unaware civilians, and that's stolen. Holden Monero exploding in a single-take fireball. Grant Page's stunt coordination made it feel apocalyptic, but insiders like Miller himself later admitted in interviews that the near misses nearly shut down production for good. The big discovery here? These films weren't just entertaining. They exposed a hidden fragility in Hollywood's stunt world. By the late 70s, as detailed in a 1979 Variety piece, insurance companies were jacking up rates sky high after too many close calls, like the underground garage demolition in The Driver, where Ryan O'Neal trained to smash a Mercedes into pillars himself. No CGI, just controlled destruction that left crews breathless and budgets bleeding. And here's the emotional gut punch. Stuntmen like Hal Needham weren't invincible heroes. They were family men pushing limits for the thrill, but the fallout from botched jumps, like in White Lightning, where Needham's riverbank leap went wrong and Burt Reynolds dove in to save him, revealed a deeper toll on friendships and psyches that no one talked about back then. 7. Revelations deepen. Internal battles. Another revelation flips the script on what we romanticize about the era. These chases were as much about internal battles as external speed. Take Cannonball in 1976, Paul Bartel's satirical coast-to-coast demolition derby with over 50 wrecked vehicles, inspired by the real illegal Cannonball Run. Stunt coordinator Gary Davis pushed a Pontiac Trans Am into end-over-end flips with real pyrotechnics. But behind the scenes, as a 1976 Hollywood Reporter article uncovered, cast like David Carradine clashed with directors over safety, fearing the no-rules ethos was a recipe for tragedy. It reframes the glamour. What looked like pure adrenaline was often laced with doubt, like in Race with the Devil, where Peter Fonda's lumbering 1973 Dodge Travco RV barreled through Texas backroads fleeing Satanists, McClarty's choreography turning it into a battering ram amid Molotov cocktails and overturned trailers. The actors were inside during stunts, hearts racing with genuine fear, highlighting how these sequences blurred lines between fiction and real peril, eroding trust within teams. And the technical side? It wasn't flawless engineering, it was improvised. Genius masking flaws. In Thunderbolt and Lightfoot, Clint Eastwood and Jeff Bridges hijacked cars like a 1973 Pontiac Trans Am straight off a lot, tearing through Montana ditches with no rigging. But Michael Cimino's debut exposed how minimal prep led to unscripted wrecks, like the Plymouth Fury rolling into a ditch, forcing crews to adapt on the fly and question if the magic was worth the mayhem. 8. Industry shifts now. Let's talk consequences, because those revelations didn't just fade, they crashed into the future of filmmaking with force. First, the physical toll escalated into industry-wide changes. By the early 80s, as patterns from the 70s showed in stunt union reports, stricter regulations kicked in, making guerrilla-style shoots like the French Connections impossible and forcing a shift to safer, less visceral action that diluted the raw edge we loved. Second, reputations took hits. Directors like Friedkin and Sarafian, once hailed as visionaries, faced backlash for endangering lives, with historical precedents like the near-fatal crashes in Gone in 60 Seconds setting off lawsuits that tarnished legacies and scared off talent. Point 9. Emotional and cultural impact. Third, the emotional scars lingered, unraveling team dynamics. Friendships forged in the fire, like Reynolds and Needham's, strained under the weight of rescues and fractures, leading to burnout that echoed in quieter careers post-decade. And fourth, it impacted the cars themselves. The muscle era's icons, like the Dodge Chargers and Ford Mustangs, became relics as emissions laws and oil crises killed off high-horsepower beasts, tying the stakes to a broader cultural shift where freedom on four wheels gave way to restraint, threatening the very soul of these stories. But even with all that, the 70s left us with questions that still rev in the background, keeping the era alive in our minds. What if Halicki hadn't pushed through his injury and Gone in 60 Seconds? Would Eleanor's legend have soared as high, or would the film have fizzled into obscurity? How close did Mad Max come to being shelved mid-shoot, and could that have derailed George Miller's entire career before it exploded? In films like The Gumball Rally, with its real Shelby Cobra roaring through the LA River Basin, why did filmmakers risk authentic machines over replicas, knowing one wreck could erase history? And looking at Rolling Thunder's gritty finale, where William Devane's Ford Galaxy pursues vengeance on gravel roads, did the psychological depth in these chases foreshadow Hollywood's turn toward character over spectacle? What if cities had clamped down earlier? Would we have lost gems like Smokey and the Bandits Bridge jumps? Finally, as the decade closed, could a single safer choice have preserved the magic, or was the end inevitable in an evolving world? These 70s chases didn't just entertain. They burned a path through cinema that still smokes today, a reminder of when risks felt worth it and engines told stories words couldn't. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Which chase hits you hardest? And do you think we'll ever see that raw fire again? Keep watching, because the road ahead might surprise us all.